Roll Tide, everybody. Welcome to Cover Crimson, Alabama. Jalen Milroe getting set to take on the Badgers. And I promise you guys this, making this statement now, Milroe is going to be ready to handle his business and Alabama's business at Camp Randall. He's got to be. It's game time. Well, at least it is on Saturday. But you guys, we appreciate you being here. Get in the comments section. Make sure that you give us a thumbs up. That's a way of saying Roll Tide. And from that, Roll Tide to you guys. Let's start the show. There it is. Cover Crimson, covercrimson.com. Thank you for being a part of what we do here. $1. That's less than a cup of coffee. That's $1 is like not even the small coffee at Starbucks. I mean, that's like the cup itself. For $1, less than a cup of coffee, you get us and covercrimson.com for a month. And look, you get the annual and boom, you get one of these guys right here, the Cover Crimson t-shirt. He's Clint Lamb and I'm Mick Gillispie, and we appreciate you guys being here. Roll Tide, everybody. Let's get this show started. And the hold up, man, we got some technical difficulties. You got to give us a second, man. But we're ready now. We appreciate your enthusiasm. We really do. What's up?
I'm struggling. I don't know how I sound.
Last video, good. It's good.
Last video I did with Stacy. It did like the camera mic the entire time. The weather's been acting funky. Spectrum's been acting funky. I don't know what to make of it, man. I just nothing seems to want to work right today. It's just one of those days, but this is supposed to be my escape from that. So hopefully we don't have too many more technical difficulties. Maybe I don't cut out again. And hopefully everybody listening can hear me okay.
Well, everybody knows this. Roll Tide, Roll Tide, Roll Tide, Roll Tide, Roll Tide, Roll Tide, Roll Tide. Now, I would start it with that, okay? Now, the second thing, and I said this to open the show, and I got to be enthusiastic about it. Just watching both of these teams play, watching Alabama, going back and watch Alabama through all the ups and downs, I think Jalen Milroe is going to be ready for action on Saturday. I really do, man. I just think that he's ready to bust some plays. You said it kind of reminded you of the Kentucky game last year. They're kind of equivalent to Kentucky. I tend to agree with that. I think that this is a Wisconsin program that's in transition. I think they're going to be good. I don't think they're quite there yet, though. I think they're improved. And I think that this Alabama team is sneaky good. You know, just going back and watching it, all the struggles, all the 3 and outs, and then all of a sudden, it's like watching a Tyson fight back in the day. Pow, 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 knockout.
I don't know what to make of this one, Mick, because if Alabama, there's no reason on paper Alabama should not dominate this game. You know, it's an 11 a.m. kickoff. It's, in Madison. All that stuff matters, but and that's why I say, there's a reason these games aren't played on paper. They're played on a football field, and that's so to automatically say Alabama's going to dominate, that's not how it always works. There's been times where Alabama should have won on paper by 100 points, and they didn't do it. So, you still got to play the game, and you still got to give Wisconsin credit because they can cause you some issues if you allow them to. But I would say, you look at how Wisconsin could potentially attack Alabama, whether it be, and Stacy and I just wrapped up talking about this. We were kind of previewing the game, and it was, Jalen Milroe kind of has not gotten comfortable this year. Let's try to make his life a little uncomfortable. And then, you start talking about that pass rush. Do they have the ability to capitalize on some of these things? I mean, they've kind of struggled as far as their pass rush, as far as their run defense. I mean, their defensive front in general, first and second level, especially without Jake Chaney. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be, in a position to limit Alabama's early down success, kind of earn the right to get after the quarterback and try to make Jalen Milroe's life uncomfortable. You look at the other side of the football, Alabama's young in the secondary, or, at spots in the secondary. You try to take advantage of that, but then you look at Tyler Van Dyke. They've struggled as far as their explosive plays. Their receivers have struggled to create consistent separation. So it's like, okay, can they take advantage of that aspect of Alabama's, current questions or deficiencies? So that's why I say Alabama, in a lot of ways, they should be able to establish the run, play off of that, continue to have the entire playbook open. And so they should win pretty handedly. But, like as I said, you still got to play the game. But on paper, it looks pretty good.
More comments. Got my shit together. Roll Tide to you, man. I like that one. Ask Notre Dame about Northern Illinois. I don't put this as Northern Illinois. I mean, Wisconsin's not sneaking up on Alabama. I mean, this is a circle on the schedule when you're going, you know what, we get to go there and play. We get to play there. I really feel like this is one of those games that you, as being a part of the Alabama program, you love. And read AL.com, they did an awesome job telling the story about how Alabama scheduled these games, right? And Greg Byrne having relationships with some of these athletic directors and feeling like, hey, I know Barry Alvarez, it would be cool to do this. We'll go there, passionate fan bases and all that kind of stuff. I love it, man. I mean, this is what the playoff brings to college football. It gives you matchups that you wouldn't normally get. Now you may see this in Dallas, but there's also an element of college football that is so cool to go on the road, man. To be at Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge, right? To go to Neyland Stadium in Knoxville and take on Tennessee, to play in the swamp, to go to the different places. And this is cool, man. Camp Randall, who knows if Alabama's ever going to go back there again in our lifetime? I mean, you think in 1928, they thought that the next time they'd play these guys there would be 2024, So this is one of those games that I just don't feel like Alabama is going to let sneak up on them.
Yeah. And that, Heretic Skeptic brings up a good point.
Yeah, he does.
Bama has not been a great road team since 2021, and I will fully agree with that. And that's kind of why I say, you still have to play the game on paper, right? I mean, it's Kentucky last year. The reason I compare it to the Kentucky game last year is A, early kickoff, B, the fact that you have like a transfer quarterback who's still trying to figure some things out. They had Devin Leary, you got Tyler Van Dyke here. Alabama was like a 9.5 point favorite on the road. They're a 15.5 point favorite in this game, but just viewing Wisconsin, viewing Kentucky last year kind of feels in some way similar. They don't win the same way. They're not going to try to do the same things necessarily with Phil Longo as their offensive coordinator, but I just mean, in that game, Alabama came out, they got a really fast start, got up, a lot really quick, and they were able to establish enough of an early lead where A, they took the crowd out of it early, B, they kind of positioned themselves where, they could weather the storm when things started going wrong. And you would hope that they wouldn't have that, those kind of lulls and muff punt really changing the momentum of the game and all that stuff. But I mean, it feels like a situation where you can go on the road and you can dominate. But once again, you have to actually play the games. And Alabama, a lot of their road issues, in my opinion, in recent years has been Alabama problems, not because they haven't been talented enough or the other team's just done everything right. It's been Alabama kind of, self-inflicted wounds, penalties, undisciplined play, things like that. So you can't have that. If they go out there and they have 13 more penalties and turn the football over 3 more times, I don't think they're going to dominate anybody. So Alabama's still got to take care of Alabama. But if they do handle their side of it, to me, that's when I say there's no reason for them not to dominate this game because, I just, from an X's and O's perspective, I don't think Wisconsin matches up great against them.
Yeah, let me throw this back up here again because this just so happened to be the conversation that we had today headlining the All-American report with Mike Johnson. We talked about this. We talked about Alabama's mentality on the road before 2001 and then lately and how we get back to being dominant on the road. You have to be a subscriber to Cover Crimson, but that's part of your membership, and you can sign up right now for $1, as I mentioned before. Annual subscription gets you one of these shirts and also gets you the message board and all the content. We got some really cool stuff coming up. But you're right. This is an opportunity, Clint, This is an opportunity for Alabama to prove that they can go on the road and win games. And I'm excited about it. And I don't want to see Alabama squeak a game out with a field goal. I mean, I want to see them go in there and basically show ruthless aggression. I want them to run the stadium dry. I want it to be like it used to be, where the fourth quarter comes. I can remember going to Georgia in 2015. Bama's an underdog, and it was raining cats and dogs in there. Derrick Henry's running over Georgia, and the fans are running out of the stadium. That was the way that Alabama used to play on the road, and that's the mentality that they really need to get back to. 2020 doesn't count to me because no one was in the stands. I'll take the national championship, don't get me wrong, but it's time to get back and do the things that Alabama is known to do on the road. They've won games. Look, it's still been a hard team to beat, but they haven't been dominant.
Yeah, and so Ron Flanagan, he says they cannot win at Camp Randall. And then 30 seconds later, he says, if they lose at Camp Randall. So I don't know, is it that they can't win or that if they, can't win? I mean, it's Alabama has every opportunity here, and the offensive line seems to be trending towards being healthier, right? I think that's really, really important. I don't know, with Caden Proctor being out, with the fact that, Elijah Pritchett last year didn't seem to be or last week didn't seem to be fully healthy. In fact, we know he wasn't fully healthy. That affects things. You got guys playing out of position like Tyler Booker, Wilkin Formby being inexperienced. We've talked about this 100 times, but the point is that affects so much of what you want to do offensively. Like, the offensive line is so important. And so, we've been trying to evaluate what this offense is going to be under Kalen DeBoer. And I think there's already some growing pains and some transitions happening. But on top of that, you've now thrown this major wrench into it, and it's made things even more complicated. So if you can get Proctor back, if Pritchett's closer to being, back to fully healthy and can go, I think you see Wilkin Formby and him kind of rotate. But, even if it ends up being Pritchett completely for whatever reason, it's like you would feel like the continuity with the offensive line will be in a much better place. You can start getting an idea of where this Alabama offense actually is, and then you just got to go out there and play football. But I'm intrigued by what they really can be still on offense, because they've got all the pieces. It's just a matter of things coming together.
Yeah, and I mean, word on the street is that we're going to see Caden Proctor, that he's practicing. And look, DeBoer hasn't made it a secret. I mean, he said in the press conferences, hey, I think he probably could have played the first game. And then it was like, you know what? This is precautionary, and stuff like that. If he doesn't play this week, then I'm starting to think that it's something else, right? I mean, now you're practicing, but you're not playing. And then the other thing is, what about Booker? I mean, Booker, to me, I would have figured he'd have been on the left side of the line the entire time as your best, offensive lineman. He slid over there last week. Isn't that the spot where you normally put your number one guy, or does he go back to the right side? I just think that Alabama is going to have all hands on deck with this offensive line going into this game. They watch film. They saw the holding penalties. They know what's going on. And Juliet, roll tide to you too, Bama Nation.
I want to bring this up because I do think it's kind of important. And Stacy and I literally just talked about this, and you'll be able to see that on the preview. But I do feel like there's some revisionist history with Pritchett. And the reason that I say that is everybody keeps describing Wilkin Formby as Alabama's backup right tackle. And I don't know where you're getting that from. The comparison I made on that show was to kind of Bryce Young in, 2021, when everybody said, hey, I think Paul Tyson's going to beat out Bryce Young for the starting quarterback job. And it's like, well, as a freshman, as a younger player, Bryce Young was the number 2 behind Mac Jones. So I think that kind of speaks volumes as far as how he was being viewed relative to the future. Now, that does not mean that there was no point in holding a quarterback battle, that Paul Tyson had no chance to win it. It just meant, hey, if you're making that assumption going in, it's probably an inaccurate assumption. It's the same thing here. When they didn't know Caden Proctor was going to be out for the Western Kentucky game, and when they announced the starters on the video that was already made, Wilkin Formby was announced as Alabama's starting right tackle. So he's a year younger than Elijah Pritchett, and he was getting the first crack to be out there with the starting offense for snap one of game one. And that is why I say I think he was leading that competition. It was still a competition. It wasn't solidified. And based off of performance, certainly that has probably opened the door for Elijah Pritchett. I just, these people out here that are describing, Wilkin Formby as the backup right tackle, I don't think that's the right way to go about it. He was in that right tackle competition, and so was Wilkin Formby, or so was Elijah Pritchett. But now you've got your starting left tackle back in Caden Proctor, a guy who was going through similar struggles. People forget last year, Caden Proctor was having the same trouble that Wilkin Formby did in this past game. Maybe not to the degree with those penalties and stuff, but as far as the pressures allowed, the sacks allowed, all those things, it was a major struggle for Proctor. Now you're kind of expecting him in a lot of ways to be the savior. So this is how quickly guys can turn around. I wouldn't write off Wilkin Formby just yet, but getting guys healthy is going to be really critical for this offensive line and this offense in general.
Guys, channel's brought to you by MyBookie. Use the promo code NEXTROUND. If you're like Ryan Flanagan and you feel like your trolling can make you some money, go to mybookie.ag and put your money down on Wisconsin. Hey, that's an easy bet, right? Or if you feel like Alabama can handle their business, mybookie.ag, use the promo code NEXTROUND. They'll double your initial deposit, Ryan Flanagan, or anyone else. So take advantage of it. Let's have fun. Football season's here. It wouldn't be the same without the trolls in the comment section. And the one that we had last week was going to get, Chris from Auburn was going to get the Peyton Thorne tattoo. Haven't seen him all week. So I
would love to know who Ryan's a fan of. At least Chris owned who's a fan of, and maybe I missed something.
Where is old Chris this week? Think he changed his name to Ryan?
This is what happens when you attempt to troll and you attach your name to a team. When that team doesn't perform very well, you can't exactly go back to your old trolling grounds. It's just not going to be a very good situation for him. And, I got a feeling if I was you, I probably wouldn't share who your team was either. Because all you're doing is opening yourself up. You never have to worry about anybody calling out your team if no one knows who you pull for. So stay strong, brother. As far as the game, though, it is. Mick, what do you think about this? Alabama's kind of offense going against their defense. It feels like, their best defensive lineman, James Thompson, he's out for the entire season. Jake Chaney, their best linebacker, is out for the first half. They have a really good true freshman cornerback in Xavier Lucas, who I don't think he was starting, but he was playing quite a bit for them. He went out last week when they were playing South Dakota State. We think he's going to play, but we don't really know. But it's like this defense that, in the secondary, they're pretty good. That's probably their strong suit right now. Second level with Jake Chaney, they're okay. Defensive line, up to this point, I haven't been overly impressed. I already thought it was a weak spot before the Thompson injury. So it just seems like if there was a get-right game or opportunity for Alabama and Alabama's offensive line as far as physically dominating up front and creating opportunities for both the run and the pass, I would think this would be it, man. What do you think?
A couple things. First off, they struggled on the offensive line last year. They did against Auburn. And they came back against Georgia, and they had the best performance of the season. You learn, you're more focused when things don't go your way. Think about us. We can't wait to do the post-game show again, just so that we don't know why the damn thing went off, but we're going to make sure it doesn't go off because we were having so much fun. We can't get there fast enough. Right. And so it's the same thing with any job or any passion that you have. It's just the way it works. You have a bad week and then you swing back in, you have a good week. And I think that these guys are going to be focused. I think the other thing is that they're going to be healthy, or at least at full strength, maybe not totally healthy, but having Proctor in there, they were comparing him to Kobe Bryant last year. Remember when he was a true freshman and he was struggling a little bit early in the year, and they're like, Kobe Bryant wasn't great when he first started. And we think of him that way. And players wouldn't have said that if they didn't really believe in what Proctor brings to the table. But the minute that you get him in there, then all of a sudden you move Booker to a spot where he's more of a strength for you. I don't think, and I'm going off of what Mike Johnson said. I'm going to go off of what the 2-time All-American, left tackle, left guard, wherever he said, he played pretty much everywhere on the line in his days at Alabama. What if Mike tells me on and off the air that he thinks Formby's going to be fine, then he thinks Formby's going to be fine. You go through these games. He told me, he was like, I don't remember if he said it on the show or off the show. He said, I had games like this. I mean, this is how you learn. You go out there, things don't go well, and all of a sudden you're paying a lot more attention to your footwork, is what Mike said, and the way that you position your body. You're more focused on the intricate details that it takes to be successful. But we're not giving up on this guy. You're right. He was the starting right tackle. He beat Pritchett out there. And I know I say Pritchard all the time. My T's and my D's are very similar, folks. Okay. Because you hammer me in the comment section every day. Don't think I'm not working really hard to say Pritchett.
Hey, I was in my head. Every time you say Pritchard, I judge you for it. It's silently to myself. And then I was talking and I'm like, man, I'm pretty sure, like in the middle of a sentence, I'm still going, but in my head, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that probably sounded like Pritchard. And it was definitely, I've never once confused and thought Pritchard. It was just, if you're saying it right, man, them D's and them T's get a little confusing. But
you gotta click them. You gotta click them. Pritchard.
I mean, and I'll say you're right as far as I wouldn't say Formby won the starting right tackle job, but he was clearly in the lead. The intention was to rotate those guys in week 1 against Western Kentucky. And the guy who was going to get the first crack at that was Wilkin Formby, despite the fact that he was younger. So that means to me, at the very least, he had a slight edge in that competition. But at the same time, I think that's now, if Caden Proctor's back, if Elijah Pritchett's back, I think you're going to see that rotation. And it's I mentioned this in the preview show, and I apologize if some of this stuff gets repetitive. But what will happen is this is the perfect opportunity, because you can essentially tell Formby the plan all along when everybody was healthy. It was for you and Elijah to compete at right tackle. So, I would personally, I think it's going to be, I would start Wilkin Formby, because you don't want to hurt his confidence too much. And if he's not the starter after last week, what did everybody do last week? Pritchett didn't play nearly as bad against Western Kentucky in week 1, but the second he wasn't out there at left tackle in week 2, everybody's just assuming it's because of how bad he was, quote unquote, the week before. So they're going to make the same assumptions with Formby. I don't think from a confidence standpoint, that's the way to go about it. You plan on having a rotation, put Formby out there first, see how he responds. If he's struggling, then you can kind of mask that a little bit, because the intention the entire time was to rotate guys. And so, you can put Pritchett in there, see how he responds, see how he performs. And if he just performs better at that point, I wouldn't say it's necessarily fully decided, but you can really start to lean in that direction. But just do what you were planning to do in week 1. Put them both out there, put Formby out there first. No one's going to think nothing of it if you put him out there first over Pritchett, but give Pritchett opportunities and see who performs better.
Kalen DeBoer was on the coach's show last night, which is Wednesday and not Thursday. Now, I kind of like it that way because you get to it faster. And I got to tell you, Clint, every time this guy talks, he's just so positive all the time, man. He just reinforces positivity. And it's easy to see that part of his success is that he just is always focused on trying to fix the bad, but also trying to be positive about what everyone does well. And he was talking about the offense on the show, and he's talking about the depth on the offensive line and the quarterback spot, and Bernard, who transferred with him, and I just love this guy. I mean, I don't know what's going to look like at the end of the year, but I can tell you this much: seems like he'd be a lot of fun to work with.
Oh yeah, he's just one of those kind of guys where he's got your back. And it's not fake confidence. Like when he's talking about, when he's positive, it's his mindset. If there's things going wrong, what good does it spend 80% of your time focusing on the problem? You need to spend 80% of your time focusing on a solution. And it just feels like that's the way Kalen DeBoer is. But I think he also understands there's also this confidence kind of behind the scenes, because he understands, A, You've got a quarterback that's breaking in. You know, their top two receivers right now, the two guys who played over 60 snaps, the third and the fourth was Kendrick Law and Kobe Prentice at 26 and 24. So the discrepancy between the number two receiver, the top two guys, and the 3 and the 4 is pretty substantial. But those top two guys, it's a transfer and it's a true freshman. And so your quarterback's trying to develop chemistry with both of those two guys. Ron Williams wasn't on campus in the spring, by the way. And you've got an offensive line that's been kind of makeshift, a lot of different moving parts. Right now, the good part about it is you're developing depth and experience depth for later on. If something else happens, you at least have guys who have seen it or done it before. That should be helpful. But you've got, a couple of running backs who have been a part of the rotation. They've gotten action, but neither one of them have been kind of the bell cow or a featured piece of the offense. So, on that side of the football, a lot of different things changing or happening. So I'm not surprised that he's not overly concerned about what he's seeing right now, because there's plenty of chances to improve or plenty of time to improve. There's guys who are going to be coming back who should be able to help, like a Caden Proctor. And that the chemistry and all that stuff that's being developed every single week is it should get better and better. And once that starts happening, this offense should be rolling.
We talked about this yesterday, and DeBoer even was asked about it and talked about it on the coaches show. And that's the fact that Alabama practices early and how it benefits Alabama, in his mind, playing against Wisconsin. He said, that they're in the same time zone as us. We're both in the central time zone. He said, we're done practicing around 11:45, maybe earlier. So the guys are up and at it, and they're in team meetings and position meetings and special team meetings. And, sometimes they do lift on Thursday. But he said that they're up and rolling, and that should be a, pretty easy transition for them. And the reason I say that is that not that Nick Saban's teams really had a potential struggle anywhere. I mean, I don't remember many weaknesses, but sometimes these early games do give you trouble. I felt like that was the case last year against Texas. It was one of these games. It was 120 degrees on the field. You're used to practicing at night. It's a day game. I don't know if this will factor in or not, but at least the way that the schedule lines up and the way that these guys practice, I feel pretty confident that the time change isn't going to affect them at all, or the time, game time isn't.
Yeah, and that was 2 years ago. And you're 1,000% right. I do feel like that 11 a.m. kickoff certainly affected things. I mean, I'll never forget. When I was playing in high school, it was a Friday nights thing. All I was ever used to doing was playing at night, and that was dating all the way back to middle school. It was a Thursday night thing when I was playing then. And then, I get to Birmingham Southern, which is where I played my freshman year, and it's 11 a.m. kickoffs. Why? Because they're trying to, you don't want to be doing it at 2:30 or 6, or no one's going to be in your stadium because they want to be watching some of these, bigger teams. So that they would do it earlier. As far as your pregame meals and everything else, I mean, you're up at 6 a.m., doing walkthroughs, doing all this different stuff. It was such a different feel. And I remember I'd be jogging out there for warm-ups of the game, and I'm like, man, I feel like I should just now be waking up. It just is, especially as a college kid. Now I can't sleep in for nothing, but back then I could sleep for days. And so it just, 11 a.m. never really felt right. What I will say is the same thing as it was with the jerseys, the practice jerseys, and learning that they were wearing, for the quarterback's sake, the offense was either wearing a white jersey or a crimson jersey based off of if they were playing at home or away. You don't really think about that until someone brings it up and you're like, man, I can see where that would be very beneficial. It's the exact same thing here, where I wouldn't have thought about their practice time making a significant impact on this, but they're used to having to get up, get focused, get ready to play a little football. And I think that, if the game happens at night, that doesn't really affect you, because once you're up and you're kind of in the zone, you're that way for the rest of the day. But as far as it being early, you not being used to that, it can throw a wrench in things and make things a little bit different. So I think that them practicing in the mornings, this is the type of situation where it can be very beneficial, because Alabama teams in the past playing early, you would sometimes see them come out a little bit sluggish, and I can't really say that I blame them based off of how I was in college.
Guys, say Roll Tide with a thumbs up. Make sure you're a subscriber to the channel and hit the bell so you know when we're dropping new content on here. We appreciate all of you guys for hanging out with us. Yeah, all of you, even our troll friends that come from other programs like Ryan, all of you, we appreciate you being here and hanging out. This is what makes it fun. When I remember going to school and you would talk smack about your favorite teams and what they were going to do. And then, if your team won, that made going to school Monday a little easier. And if you lost, it might not be as easy, including when Alabama lost those 6 Iron Bowls in a row, or was it 5? 6, right? It's pretty miserable. I got to tell you, it was pretty miserable. I remember a friend of mine didn't want to go to work and would call out on that Monday coming back. Remember the one where we lost because of the 6 sacks? Brody Croyle got sacked. Oh, no, 12 sacks. Yeah.
Honk if you sack Brody.
Yeah. So I get it, but that's what makes it fun. And now Auburn can fear the thumb. But anyway, give us a roll tide on there with a like, and we appreciate all of you guys for hanging out. Thank you so much, Southern Red, for being here. And you guys that are here with us every single day for the show, man, you guys are building this, helping us build this channel. We're putting a lot of time into it. We're still figuring things out. Don't think we got it all figured out. But the one thing that we do know is that you guys are the reason why we feel like we're having success right now, and we're working hard for you to make it even better. Now, Coach DeBoer talked about running backs, and I feel like this is something that we got into with EG, who was at practice and talked about, actually had, clips of Jam Miller and Robert Gillispie talking about this. DeBoer was asked about rotating Jam Miller and Justice Haynes. He said, you feel a lot better about that. And it's not like they are completely different either. It's where it's got to be certain plays, and you're running there. They're versatile. They can catch the ball out of the backfield. They can run inside. They can run outside. They run with power and speed. So it's not like you call certain plays for certain players in the backfield. It's basically, he's saying he likes both of these guys, Jam Miller and Justice Haynes. And I feel like, and Bama Mick, man, great name, Bama Mick. I should steal that from you. I feel like this, though, man. I feel like this versatility and depth at the running back spot makes Alabama dangerous in games like this and games like the Georgia game. It's really hard to just key on one guy.
Well, and it's when you've got like a thunder lightning situation where, okay, Derrick Henry, when he's out there, in the NFL at Alabama, same thing. It's like, okay, one aspect of Derrick Henry that you really don't have to worry about too much or put too much of a focus on is him catching the football out of the backfield. It's not that like he's completely incapable. If you get lulled to sleep, they'll throw him the football. He'll get a couple of targets, but he's not like a dynamic pass catcher out of the backfield. Like there's elements of his game that you don't really have to, you can kind of ignore it. Now, granted, he's so good at the other stuff, it really doesn't matter. You can know, he could tell you exactly what he's doing, and you're still not going to stop him most of the time. But, when you've got that thunder lightning, that lightning, is more, sometimes it's the smaller scat back. Okay, if this guy's out there, they're doing some sort of pass out of the backfield. It's going to be some off tackle, outside type of running, nothing really between the tackles. When you have a true 3-down complete back that can really do it all, there's no tells as far as the personnel that you've got in the game. And that's exactly even the home run hitting ability that a lot of, guys maybe don't have. Jam Miller's got that ability, and so does Justice Haynes. So they've, one thing about Najee, I always respected Najee as far as, and some people have argued with me. I've kind of always viewed him as maybe one of, if not the best running backs in school history. And I would certainly put him in maybe at the top of the list because he did do it all. He could be a volume pass catcher. He was good in pass protection. He could bang between the tackles. He could do off tackle stuff. He had a little bit of home run hitting ability. I don't think he's got the Jam Miller or the Justice Haynes, stuff on that front, but he was good enough in that area. But that's why I say, like, I feel like Alabama's got two versions of that to an extent right now, where, if you can have either one of them in the game, the entire playbook as far as what you want to do with that running back position is completely open for you. You now throw in the rushing ability from a Jalen Milroe. That's more strain on your defense. If they can get, these things in the passing game up and going, it's really going to make this offense difficult to defend.
Alabama and Wisconsin. That is 11 a.m. kickoff from Camp Randall, Madison, Wisconsin, this Saturday. And we're talking about it here on Cover Crimson and covercrimson.com. But we appreciate you guys being here. And again, we appreciate it if you give us a thumbs up as we hang out, subscribe to the channel. And as Southern Red says, heads down, tusks up, as Alabama goes to take on Wisconsin. Look, this is a really big game. Tyler Van Dyke is their quarterback. This could really look, if you beat Alabama and you're the Badgers, I mean, this is a program defining game. If you lose, everyone expects you to lose, right? But with all of that said, Tyler Van Dyke's probably going to try to take a page out of Byron Brown's book, who actually had some success, maybe not a lot throwing, but he did have success running the football against Alabama's defense. Didn't score, but 16 points, but still, I mean, they were in the game in the fourth quarter, and that's a big deal. Now, Van Dyke transferred in. He was in Miami, right? And
he
then,
was.
Yeah, and then transferred in. He comes in with experience. The guy can throw the football. He was one of those quarterbacks when he was at Miami that we kept looking at and going, hey, this guy potentially could be like a Heisman dark horse, but it just never came to fruition. And, you wonder why. I mean, it could have been the Miami program. Could it have been, some injuries? I know he dealt with that too, but now he's playing for Luke Fickell, and he's had 2 games to get ready for this one with this new team.
Yeah, well, for him, it's just always been a consistency problem. Like when he's on, he's on. I mean, he'll look like one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's got that capability, but the problem is when he's off, it's terrible. And it's just he's not somebody that really is going to threaten you. And that's why I say if Alabama can come out and get off to a fast start, he's not the kind of guy. If you can kind of get him off his game early, I haven't really, that I can recall, ever remember him starting off struggling and really get it together and end up playing a really good football game. So kind of what you establish him to be in this particular, on any particular Saturday, is kind of going to be what you get from him. And I think that that's really, really important. Like you talk about Byron Brown, much more dynamic runner than Tyler Van Dyke. Van Dyke's got a lot more mobility than probably given credit for. You're going to see him get out on the move. He's going to extend plays. He's going to run the football because I think there are going to be some opportunities there. When you watch what Byron Brown did last week, I mean, why would you not implement that in your game plan as much as you possibly can? But just, I don't think he can quite take advantage of it and get the corner like Brown did in some certain situations. And I don't think he's going to be breaking tackles at the same rate that Brown did either. So I don't think he has the rushing ability of a Brown. He's going to have to do a lot more of his damage, more of a complementary style where you're using your legs and doing some of those things, but you're also taking advantage of Alabama. And it can't just be on the short to intermediate stuff. You've got to be able to attack Alabama vertically, something that, USF did, pretty well. Now, granted, part of that was just the fact that Alabama was getting fatigued with the tempo. I don't understand why Wisconsin's not using more tempo. Like that was Phil Longo. That is what Tyler Van Dyke did well at Miami, was when they did go tempo. But I haven't seen enough of it in the first 2 weeks. Maybe they're saving that for Alabama. Or maybe they see that Alabama struggled with it, against USF, and they say, hey, we haven't been doing it, but we got to do it. Maybe they're not comfortable with all the different moving pieces, a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, where they feel comfortable going up tempo. Maybe it's the in-helmet communication. They're having some trouble with that. I don't know what the culprit is there, but I mean, if I was them, I would go tempo as much as I possibly can. He's going to have to be able to take advantage, because there probably will be at least one occasion, maybe a couple, where, you can get some advantages downfield. And unlike USF, you need to be able to capitalize, because I don't think you're going to be able to find success in the same way that South Florida did, which is with their running quarterback.
Well, I gotta tell you, Clint and the rest of the gang,
he's back.
Hat in hand, he's back, and I'm glad you're back, Chris. We thought about you in that shocking upset of Auburn on Saturday, and I gotta tell you, when I see that, it's hard for me. As much as I hate Auburn, I love the SEC, so I struggle. Like the struggle for me is do I want to see the SEC go down to what conference is Cal even in? The Pac-10? No, the Pac-12, the Pac-16, the ACC. I don't even know. The Big Ten. But I'm glad to see you back, Chris, because I know that that Peyton Thorne tattoo, the ink isn't even dry yet, and you're trying to get it off your leg.
You think that never mind. And I appreciate you being back, Chris.
Yeah, Chris, we're just messing with you, man. Thank you for hanging out with us. I was thinking about you though when I heard Peyton Thorne on the next round talking about He was,
Venmo requests.
he was talking about those Venmo requests.
Hey,
I was wondering if you got his number, if you got his Venmo number.
Hey, all I'm saying is if Alabama loses, if you don't think Chris is not going to be right here, ready to rub some in, I get it, but yeah, Mick, I feel good about kind of where Alabama is heading. Still, I understand that it hadn't looked like a lot of us were hoping coming into the season, but I don't know. This offense feels like when everything clicks, it's going to be really, really hard to stop. But it's just like I've been saying, there's a lot of different moving parts, new parts, different guys calling the plays, relationships that are being built. And it's maybe taking a little bit longer. And I think that it all starts with the offensive line and the lack of help there. So we'll see what ends up happening. Mick, on the other side of the football, though, I mean, with Alabama's defense going against their offense, we've been talking about Tyler Van Dyke. I don't know. I mean, what do you think if you were Wisconsin? What would your plan of attack be?
Whew, I guess it would probably be to crowd the line of scrimmage, blitz the hell out of Milroe, and then try to rely on that secondary not to make mistakes. That's a risky game plan because what we've seen from Alabama this year is that they just are explosive. I mean, they'll score touchdowns in a second if you miss one tackle, and that includes Ryan Williams, who's done it 3 times, including the biggest catch last week, but Law and Prentice. I mean, all these guys. Bernard, they went to Bernard a lot. I thought that was kind of eye-opening last week. So to me, that would be it. But I just really believe in Milroe, and I have since last year, and I know I take some heat for that sometimes. I don't think he's Bryce Young. I don't think he's Tua. I think he's a lot like Jalen Hurts. I think he's better than Blake Sims. I was never a Blake Sims quarterback fan. I was always a fan of who he was off the field and his versatility at football. I just never thought Blake Sims was a quarterback. I think that Jalen Milroe is a quarterback. I really do. I just think that he's so athletic and he's so dangerous and he's so explosive, but he still just has to get down that short range game. And it took Hurts a while to do that too. But look who's in the NFL as a star right now. Tua and Hurts. So I believe that Milroe is further along now than Hurts was when he left for Oklahoma. And that's just my opinion.
Well, and we talk a lot about like the check downs and stuff and how, Jalen Milroe needs to do that more. People need to understand kind of how dual threat quarterbacks work. A lot of times when they get to that point where a lot of guys will be checking down, by that point, their default's feet. If nothing's open on your primary stuff, you go to your secondary, it's not open. Your Tom Brady's and stuff, the quarterbacks that are kind of stuck in the pocket, they ain't going to be doing a whole lot outside of it. It's either go to your check down or throw it away or take a sack. I mean, that's your options. But when you have a dynamic runner, they've got another option at their disposal. And so they're going to take those opportunities. And you would like to see him kind of come along a little bit and say, you know what, if you can mix it up a little bit and really threaten defenses, work into your check downs, but also they know that you're also going to work down to your legs. That's just that much more that they have to account for. I think that makes your offense a lot more dynamic. But I agree with Heretic Skeptic here. You've
done that a few times today.
He's dropping some good comments. What can I say? Badgers will use the Texas A&M plan from last year. They'll load the box, stop the run, drop safeties, make Milroe beat you with his arm on short and intermediate passes. If they can do that effectively, that's not going to be great for Alabama. And I do think that you are going to see quite a bit as far as them loading the boxes up, them trying to apply as much pressure as they possibly can on Milroe and kind of seeing where things go from there. And that's why Alabama needs to be able to take advantage of some things early. You need to anticipate that if you're Alabama. Like there's no reason. Last week, it's like, okay, you're trying to make some adjustments. They're doing a lot of different things. This week, you've had time to prepare. You probably know what Wisconsin's going to try to do. They're going to try to get that home field advantage, that home crowd riled up, make things, the crowd noise as difficult as they possibly can on Alabama, stuffing the run, on first down, creating second longs. That's kind of how you get them involved and energized and all that stuff, because I don't think they're going to find a ton of that from their offense. So it's really, in my opinion, going to have to come from the defensive side. And so you need to anticipate that, be ready for it, and then try to do some things off of that, some quick passes. People talk about the screens, maybe do some jets, get some stuff out on the perimeter. Hopefully, a Kendrick Law or a Jeremy Bernard or somebody can make a guy miss, break a tackle, turn it into a long gain, and really get the momentum going on your, on any particular drive. But yeah, I completely agree there that I do think that is going to be their plan of attack. Stack the box, try to make him, win with his arm as much as possible, but also kind of try to take away those deep shots as much as possible. And if you can force him to be, short to intermediate, that's really where Alabama's the weakest right now. And so you need to be prepared for that if you're Alabama.
Look, the other part of this is when you are handicapping a game, and for me, that could be a lot of different sports, but I'm just going to do football for this show, obviously. I just look at how many paths to victory a team has. And I could see Alabama winning a defensive struggle because I think that their defense is going to have success against this Badgers offense. I think that Wisconsin will be more dangerous next year just because they'll have had another full season to implement the game style that Fickle wants to have there, right? I think Alabama, it would win a shootout. I think Alabama's quarterbacks are better, or quarterback is better. I think the running backs are better. I think the receivers are better. I think that their defense up front's better. I don't know about their cornerbacks and secondary, although the Bama secondary hasn't been bad. So I just feel like now, look, they go turn the ball over. They get all these holdings. They get, 200 yards almost of offense pulled back because of holding penalties. They don't make it easier for Milroe to adjust to a lot of pressure. You could lose any game. Plus a hostile, unfamiliar environment. So, I mean, I'm not saying that Wisconsin can't win or won't win. I don't think they will. But I just think the path for Alabama to win is a lot bigger. They could win. They could not throw the ball effectively, run the ball between Milroe and the two running backs, play defense, and beat Wisconsin. I just don't think Wisconsin's going to have, unless Bama turns it over, I don't think they're going to be able to sustain continued drives to score enough on Alabama. If Bama scores 21 points, I expect them to win this game.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking about a shootout. If it turns to a shootout, I don't know that I like that for Alabama, because that doesn't bode well for the defense at all. And B, I just haven't seen Alabama's offense to a point where I feel good about them consistently putting up points. We appreciate that, Chance. We really do.
Roll Tide, buddy.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I thought that Bama Mick brought up a good point here and wanted to touch on it before we get out of here, just real quick. I think Kendrick Law will be a star receiver very soon. Mick, have you been kind of surprised by him? Because, he's played, enough. I feel like his role from the snaps played, I went back and I covered this at covercrimson.com, only $1 to sign up for the first month. You can go check out all of my snap count observations. But I noticed that his role, I think he averaged 17.9 snaps per game last year over the course of the entire year. He's playing 17 and a half right now through 2 games, but 24 of those came in this last game. Last year, over his last 7 games, where it really felt like they started to get him more involved, he averaged, I think, around 22. So that 22 to 24 kind of where I feel like, okay, that's where he was last year when they started figuring out we need to use Kendrick Law more. But that's where he's at this year. It hadn't really increased. Not only that, but you've seen a total of what? I think 4 touches, maybe 3 total targets and a carry. He only has 1 catch and one run. So you've got 2 total touches this entire season through 2 games. Is that them holding him back a little bit? Is it they're trying to figure out how to properly utilize him? Is it the fact that maybe he's not 100% healthy? I just thought, that he would. We expected Ron Williams to an extent. I think he's exceeded everybody's expectations out the gate. Bernard's role last week was a lot more of what we expected from Bernard. But, you talk about Prentice, and we like him a lot. We like Cole Adams a lot. We knew Henderson was going to be involved in the rotation. But for Kendrick Law specifically, I think we were all expecting a little bit more. Have you been surprised by that?
Man, I have, but maybe he hasn't been healthy, Clint. I mean, that could be part of this as well. Chris put up here that he saw Locked On Badgers this morning, and they said that Alabama is not the same, and we can exploit their weaknesses. You know, I feel like, and not to get off a Law and then go into this, I'm surprised that Law didn't play as much the first week, but he might be hurt. You know, he might be coming off an injury. Maybe it's something that, but he hasn't even been targeted that much either. You know, when Ryan Williams has been targeted, he's made plays. And so, and Law did last week. You know, he's got to get open more and make more plays, and that could happen. I don't know if he's a star yet. I mean, to be honest with you, I see it, flashes of it, but I don't see anything that indicates that he's going to be Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Smitty, Waddle, Julio. And when I see Ryan Williams, I see Smitty and Waddle and Ruggs and Judy and Mechie and, you know, and all these guys, every single one of them, like the guys, like he just exudes superstar, you know? So Law has the abilities, can run, he can catch and all that stuff, but he's got to do it out on the field and make those catches and make the most out of his opportunities. But just kind of going back to Wisconsin and college football, not thinking that they really have to worry about Alabama, and the receivers kind of in the same thing. I love that. I love it. I hope they sit around all week and say, hey, we can beat these guys. They're not that good anymore. I hope George is saying that. Keep saying it.
Well, you know, it just for Kendrick Law, it wasn't necessarily that I thought he was going to be, you know, I've never seen him as like a volume guy. Like he really wasn't that on the high school level. We haven't seen that really at Alabama. It's just, I do feel like Alabama got in kind of a groove with how you probably need to be utilizing him.
Right. Like
I just don't,
year.
Yeah. And so like, you haven't been seeing just a whole lot of even that kind of stuff. You know, you've seen a couple of Jets. I mean, maybe not even a couple. I'd have to go back and watch. I know of at least one, and obviously on the carry. But, you know, they were lining him up in the backfield some last year.
Mm-hmm.
They were lining him up in line some last year. It just feels like that. Take advantage of this guy's strengths. I mean, you can do some. It's almost like you don't have to be in 12 personnel, and you've kind of got 12 personnel when you've got him on the field. He's that good of a blocker. And Alabama, I think, started to realize that last year a little bit. And sometimes you can even go 12 personnel and you've got him. And now you're in a run heavy formation that doesn't really look as run heavy as it would seem. And so maybe using him in that way, you know, I just haven't really seen a whole lot of that, and it could be health related. You never want to speculate on that, but you just never know who's a little bit banged up, who isn't. But at the same time, it is very interesting how we all kind of thought he was going to be a big part of the offense, and big part does not mean he's getting 10 targets a game, you know, or he's going for 1,000+ yards. You know, just a big role means you can see him in some key situations, as far as whether it be as a blocker, whether it be, you know, where they're lining him up to kind of take away attention from the defense, or just being creative and manufacturing some touches for him. We just haven't seen that to the degree that I thought we would. And I was just wondering if that was like if that's by design and we'll see more of that as the season progresses, or if that's, you know, something as far as they're just really going heavy on the Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, and then there's just so many other guys they want to get involved that they just really can't get Law involved enough because they're trying to rotate him with so many others.
Yeah, it could be like this, like Royal Payne says. It could be that they haven't unveiled the total offense yet, and I believe that could be the case. I mean, you've got to figure you're going to beat Western Kentucky and South Florida, and I know we struggled against South Florida, but still, you know, ended up blowing them out in the end. Where do you get, like, if you rank the wide receivers, where do you rank Law right now? Where would you have him?
I just think with his skills, it's so complimentary, man. That's kind of, we talk about the lack of size in Alabama's wide receiver room outside of a Caleb Odom. And from a mismatch problem, Law's really not going to provide that because he didn't have the length. But I think from just hey, if you put him out there on the perimeter, he's blocking like a tight end. And I mean, you can do some different things. I think that his role, his ability, the versatility that he can bring to your offense with just the physicality, you don't get that level of physicality from the wide receiver position often. And, I know that DeBoer is a little bit more finesse than where Alabama was heading last year, but I really thought that if you used him properly, you could really add some wrinkles and elements to your offense. I still would kind of view him as number 3, in my opinion. And I still think he's going to end up, it's kind of like, with, and Kobe Prentice, I mean, he's been getting a lot more targets and he's been doing some good things with him. I mean, he had an incredible catch last week that was negated by a penalty, and we overlooked that. I mean, he is a very solid player. So if someone wanted to put him 3rd, I would understand it. And as far as the usage, I would say that you probably have a little bit better of an argument. But if you're talking season long, where I think these guys are at, I still view Law as the wide receiver 3. And I think if you utilize him properly, he can end up being a damn good one.
Yeah. All right. Clint, final thoughts before we pack it up. Tomorrow we'll have our pick show, so make sure you guys watch that. I'm curious to see how we all did on the pick show. You and I know what we did last week. We never did figure out what Chris did on the picks, did we? But we'll know for this week, because we got to keep the standings, Clinton. I know that after your first week, that's not something that you wanted to do. But you got to, man. You got to own that record.
Hey, you know what? I'm pretty sure. I'm fairly certain I went 4-4.
That's not bad.
Hey,
that's
if I can 50. Go 4-4,
50.
Hey, if you roll with me, you're losing juice. So I can live with that.
Right.
Going 2 and 5.
So hard, man. It is so hard to pick games, isn't it?
I was doing so well, man. It was crazy. Who was it early on? Was it Mississippi State? Who was it that blew it? There was somebody that I guess I could pull it up and see, but it was it was Arkansas, Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
we picked Arkansas, took the 7.5 points, and Arkansas was smoking them. And it's like, okay, that's a dub right there.
Oh,
and then we picked Texas out of nowhere, or not out of nowhere, but we picked Texas. They were drumming Michigan. So it's like at the beginning, I'm like, okay, we're starting off really well. Next thing I know, I get in the press box. I look up at the score with Arkansas, and Arkansas is losing by 8 points. We had them plus 7.5. And they were destroying Oklahoma State, and they lose by 8 points. When I say I'm always on the wrong side of half a point, I am not kidding. It is incredible. Don't know how it happens, but at the same time, I finished strong. We picked Auburn to handle business. I mean, we picked them to handle a lot, and they did not. I know you went with NC State. You went with South Carolina, though. You went with South Carolina, though. Only one of us.
I knew South Carolina. I nailed that one. I thought that Tennessee would win. I just didn't think that they would blow them out like that. I figured that NC State would hang in there somewhat, but I was wrong. Kentucky's Kentucky, man. This isn't basketball. This is not basketball. No, you're not giving me 10 points. I mean, come on. Man.
I thought it, but yeah.
Said that last week.
That wasn't just like you were right, like you. I mean, I felt done. I looked at that score once and I said, I don't even want to look into what's happening with this game, because that was bad. But Chris went with Colorado. Me and you went with Nebraska. We were all wrong with Alabama. So I mean, we'll get into all that on the picks show. But I at least wanted to point out, I'm fairly certain I went 4-4. I haven't exactly. I don't know. I would just rather I make the picks and then let's just never talk about it again, one way or the other. Unless you come back and say you went like 7-1, and then I'm gonna be on here next Friday.
If you go 1-7, you got to bring that up, and if you go 7-1, you got to bring
that
up.
I get it. Everything else I'm willing to be wrong on, but man, these whole picks, man, I've lost people too much money in the past, friends and stuff. Oh, what do you think about this game? And you best believe if I give a take on it, you need to go in the opposite direction.
They're like, hey, pick up the phone, like, hey, Clint, I got Clint's picks. Yeah, we're gonna put them in. No, bet the whole house. And then you got some movers coming in to get everything in there.
Hey, I get those text messages this is why I won't do it. When people ask now, I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do it, because you're gonna hit me up when it's wrong, and I don't like feeling guilty.
You just take the opposite. Just ask Clint and take the opposite. You'll at least break even.
Hey, that's right. You either go 5-2 or you'll break even. So that's a win over the long haul.
Guys, Coker's coming over tonight, so we'll have an elephant in the room for you. And tomorrow, the tailgate show that I host with Coker, Ryan Anderson's going to be there as well. We'll record that for radio across the state of Alabama from the Old River Grill at the Floribama So if you're in the area, swing by and say hi to us 1 to 3 on Friday. And we'd love to see. We'd love to get you signed up for Cover Crimson. I mean, if you come, just know I'm going to say, hey, it's $1, but you could get the t-shirt if you do the annual subscription. It's been something that we've put a lot of heart and passion into, and we want you guys to be there with us as we put this thing together. And we're going to be covering Alabama after the game on Saturday. Make sure you swing in too. And I promise you, we're not gonna have any technical snafu that sends us spiraling right out of there. Just terrible. All right. Final thought. Any final thoughts?
I think I'm good, Mick. This has been fun, man. Guess next time we're talking, we'll be talking about some college football picks.
All right, guys. Roll Tide, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. Like and subscribe. We're brought to you by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Use the promo code NEXTROUND. They'll double your initial deposit. MyBookie.ag will double your initial deposit with the promo code NEXTROUND. Roll Tide, everybody. Thanks for hanging.